The conference room was completely silent. I sat at the long oak table, my thick presentation folder resting right in front of me. I had spent 3 full months building that logistics optimization plan. It was designed to cut shipping delays by 20%. It was supposed to save the company millions. But the seat at the head of the table, the seat I had occupied for over a decade, was already taken. Actually, it was not just taken. Julian Thorne was sitting in it. He was 29 years old. He had a freshly printed business degree and absolutely no real-world logistics experience. I had been the senior operations director at Apex Logistics for 14 years. I knew every highway route, every independent driver, and every warehouse tracking code by heart. But on a quiet Tuesday morning, I was suddenly treated like a guest at my own company. Marcus Sterling, our CEO, stood at the front of the room near the screen. He deliberately refused to look me in the eye. He kept his focus on the window blinds as he spoke. As of today, we are pivoting to a leaner, digital-first structure, he said. His voice was flat and practiced. Due to this strategic shift, your current role is being eliminated due to redundancy. I waited for the next sentence. I waited for him to mention a fair severance package or a consulting transition. I had built half of the operational systems in this building. I expected a dignified exit. Instead, Marcus slid a single sheet of paper across the polished wood. It was not a termination letter. It was a new employment contract. I read the printed terms quickly. My official title was gone. My corner office with the city view was gone. My salary was slashed in half. They were officially moving me to a role called Facilities Support Lead. In simple terms, they wanted me to manage the night cleaning crew. They wanted me to handle inventory for the janitorial supplies and oversee the trash removal routes. My fingers gripped the edge of the table. I slowly looked up at Julian. He leaned back in my old leather chair. He crossed his arms and gave me a tight, polite smirk. We really need someone who understands the ground level. Arthur, he said smoothly, consider it a fresh start. A sharp heat rushed to my face and stayed there. I felt a heavy, quiet shame settle in my chest. I turned my head and looked around the table. I saw managers and analysts I had personally trained. I saw young staff I had defended in performance reviews. Not a single one met my eyes. They all stared down at their open notebooks. They shifted in their seats. They made themselves small. They acted like I had already disappeared. I did not yell. I did not demand answers. I just listened to the low hum of the overhead lights. I had a 30-year mortgage on a house my family needed. I had a daughter in her second year of college with tuition due in 2 months. I had a stack of medical bills for my wife sitting on the kitchen counter. I could not afford to walk away empty-handed. I picked up the heavy black pen from the table. I clicked the cap. I signed my full name at the bottom. Marcus finally gave a quick nod. He did not say thank you. He immediately turned his attention back to the screen. I slowly gathered my folder. I pushed my chair back. I stood up and walked toward the heavy glass doors. I pushed them open and stepped into the bright hallway, feeling completely invisible in a building I helped construct. My new workspace was not an office at all. It was a narrow storage closet tucked next to the loading dock bay. There were no windows. The fluorescent tube overhead flickered with a steady buzz. The only chair was a cracked wooden stool I had dragged down from the break room. On the wall, they nailed a thick gray jumpsuit with a white cloth patch. Someone had stitched my name on it, but the letters were sewn crooked. The first letter of my name pointed downward at a sharp angle. It felt like a quiet joke, but nobody cared enough to notice. Nobody laughed. My new duties were painfully simple. I had to make sure the night cleaning crew clocked in on time. I had to count boxes of paper towels, heavy-duty trash bags, and floor cleaner. I had to walk the main corridors before dawn and report broken lights to an outside contractor. It was not difficult work. It was just completely meaningless. 3 weeks ago, I was approving million-dollar carrier contracts. I was negotiating fuel rates and route schedules. Now, my most important task was fixing a clogged drain in the executive restroom on the 4th floor. I stood over that porcelain fixture with a chemical bottle in my hand, watching the dark water finally swirl and drain away. I wiped my hands. I washed my face. I did not complain. I just logged my hours. I quickly learned how to disappear into the background. I wore the gray jumpsuit every day. I pushed the yellow maintenance cart at a slow, steady pace. When people saw me coming, they naturally stepped out of my way. Julian walked past me in the main hallway on Thursday. He wore a tailor navy suit and polished shoes that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. He did not say hello. He did not nod. He simply shifted his weight to the left and stepped around me like I was a piece of dropped luggage. I kept my eyes on the carpet tiles. I kept breathing, but I was not just cleaning floors. I was watching everything. I started noticing things that the new leadership team completely ignored. I noticed that the main server room in the basement was humming much louder than before. The cooling fans were working overtime. I checked the backup generator panel out of old habit. It flashed a steady yellow warning code. I logged it mentally. I also realized something strange. They had stripped my title, my company email, and my reserved parking spot. But they never deactivated my original security badge. I swiped it near the server room door, and the light turned green. It worked perfectly. It still opened the executive archives. It still worked on the upper management floor. They had simply assumed I was too embarrassed to try anything. They thought I would just quit in silence. They were very wrong. That same afternoon, I bought a small black notebook from a dollar store. I started keeping it in my jumpsuit pocket. I wrote down dates, times, and minor irregularities. I watched Julian rushing into glass meeting rooms with outside vendors. He looked stressed. He looked rushed. I overheard two junior accountants whispering by the coffee machine. They mentioned upcoming compliance audits. They talked about missing shipping logs. I walked past them slowly. I pushed my cart forward. The company was far from stable. And for the first time since that meeting, I felt completely awake. 2 weeks passed in my new routine. The office atmosphere began to change. I could feel in the air. People moved faster. They spoke in hushed tones. Emails flew back and forth at all hours, even late into the night. I cleaned the main conference room after a long meeting one evening. The whiteboard was still covered in rushed notes. The air smelled like stale coffee and stress. I emptied the trash bin slowly. Most people just tossed sensitive papers without shredding them. They were in too much of a hurry to care. I found a crumpled draft report at the bottom of one bin. I smoothed it out on the table. It showed our shipping logs for the last quarter. The numbers did not add up. Millions of dollars worth of inventory were listed as in transit. But I knew those routes. I knew those warehouses. Those goods had not moved in months. They were sitting in storage, gathering dust. I recognized the pattern immediately. It was a classic accounting trick. Someone was hiding losses. Someone was cooking the books. I started connecting the dots quietly. Julian had joined Apex after a bad investment in a tech startup. He lost a lot of money. Now he needed to make this quarter look perfect. He needed to secure his bonus and a promotion to vice president. So he was falsifying the data. He was telling the system that goods were moving when they were not. I was not a trained accountant, but I knew operations. If the trucks are not moving, the data is fake. It is that simple. I also discovered a bigger problem. The new IT system Julian pushed through is deeply flawed. It relied on manual overrides for critical functions. Only a few people knew how to execute those overrides safely. I was one of them. I helped design that safety protocol 5 years ago. Without those careful manual steps, the system was prone to corruption. It was like building a house on sand. One afternoon, I was mopping the hallway near the IT department. I heard raised voices inside. A server had crashed. Julian was shouting. He called the external support team. They tried to fix it remotely. They failed. I walked past the open door. I saw the error code flashing on the main monitor. It was a simple database lock. I could have fixed it in 10 minutes. I knew the exact command sequence. I just had to type 3 lines. I kept walking. I pushed my mop bucket down the hall. I let him sweat. I let him panic. I heard him blame the software vendor. I heard him threaten the junior IT staff. I felt a cold, quiet satisfaction, but it was mixed with worry. If this system failed completely, the whole company could go down. Innocent people would lose their jobs. Good people like Sarah in accounting. People who just showed up and did their work. I needed more than just suspicion. I needed proof. I needed leverage. But I also knew I had to be careful. If I acted too soon, they would just blame me. They would say I was sabotaging the company out of spite. I needed them to walk right into the trap. I needed the situation to become so critical that my help would be the only way out. So I kept cleaning. I kept watching. I kept writing notes in my small black book. Every date, every time, every irregularity. The cracks were spreading, and I was the only one who could see them all. The turning point came on a quiet Thursday night. The office was empty. The cleaning crew had finished their rounds. I was assigned to dust the server room in the basement. It was always cold down there. The machines hummed a constant, low song. The air smelled like ozone and static. I was supposed to wipe down the metal racks with a special cloth. That was my official task. But I had a different plan. I pulled my personal laptop from my jumpsuit pocket. It was small and old, but it still worked. I found a maintenance port on the main server rack. I knew exactly where it was because I helped install it. I plugged in my cable. The screen lit up. I typed in a command sequence. I used a backdoor password I had created years ago. It was a master key for legacy systems. Julian had changed all the main passwords when he took over, but he did not know about this one. He thought the old protocols were obsolete. He was wrong. The system accepted my credentials. A hidden archive folder appeared on my screen. This was where the system stored deleted files before they were permanently wiped. Most people never checked this folder, but I knew it existed. I navigated through the directories carefully, and then I found them. The original shipping logs, the unedited financial reports, and most importantly, a hidden email chain. The emails were between Julian and an offshore vendor. They were not encrypted well. He was sloppy. The messages proved everything. Julian had knowingly falsified data to cover up a $4 million loss. He had manually altered database entries. He had forced the system to show fake shipments. In one email, he even discussed bribing a junior analyst to stay quiet. He offered her a promotion if she would sign off on the false reports. I read each message slowly. My heart beat steady in my chest. This was not just incompetence. This was fraud. I downloaded everything. I copied the files to 3 separate encrypted drives. One small drive went into my pocket. One went into my home safe that night. The third, I mailed to my personal lawyer the next morning. I sat on the cold server room floor for a moment. I listened to the hum of the machines. I felt a calmness I had not felt in weeks. The heavy shame was gone. The quiet anger had cooled into something sharp and clear. I was no longer just a victim. I was a witness. I had the truth. But I did not act yet. I did not send an anonymous tip. I did not confront Julian in the hallway. Acting now would look like revenge. It would look like a bitter old man trying to get back at his boss. I needed them to destroy themselves first. I needed the situation to become so critical that my intervention would look like salvation, not sabotage. So I put my laptop away. I finished dusting the racks. I logged my hours. I walked back upstairs to my closet office. I sat on my cracked wooden stool. I waited. The trap was set. Now I just had to be patient. The next month was pure hell for Julian. The end of the quarter was closing in fast. The external auditors were scheduled to arrive any day. I could see the panic building behind his calm smile. He was trying to force the system to match his fake numbers. He pushed the IT team to hard-code values directly into the database. This was dangerous. It created instability. I watched from the sidelines as the young analysts worked 18-hour days. Their eyes were red. Their hands shook over their keyboards. One evening, I was restocking the break room with coffee pods. Sarah from accounting came in. She was a good kid. Smart. Hardworking. She had tears in her eyes. She told me she was scared. She knew the numbers were wrong. But Julian had threatened to fire her if she spoke up. He told her she would never work in this industry again. I listened quietly. I did not tell her what I knew. I just handed her a fresh cup of coffee. Document everything you do, Sarah, I said softly. Keep a paper trail. Protect yourself. She nodded. She wiped her eyes. She went back to her desk. Meanwhile, Marcus Sterling, our CEO, was completely blind to the chaos. He was focused on one thing, the merger deal with a larger competitor. He needed the quarterly results to look perfect to close the deal. He needed the numbers to shine. Julian told him everything was fine. I saw them talking in the hallway one afternoon. Julian's voice was smooth and confident. He lied with a straight face. It made my blood boil. But I kept my mask on. I mopped the floor. I emptied the trash. I was the invisible man, but I was also the only one who knew the whole truth. The tension built day by day. The system started to glitch more often. Small errors appeared in client invoices. Wrong addresses, missing tracking numbers, duplicate charges. Clients started calling customer service. The complaints piled up in a shared folder I could access. Julian ignored them. He hoped they would just go away. They did not. I watched the server logs closely. The manual overrides Julian was forcing were creating tiny cracks in the data structure. The system was trying to protect itself. It was flagging inconsistencies. But Julian kept pushing. He kept demanding the numbers look perfect. He was building a house of cards in a windstorm. The audit date was now just 3 days away. The office felt like a pressure cooker. People spoke in whispers. Doors closed quickly. Julian stopped smiling altogether. He paced the halls late at night. I saw him through the glass walls. He rubbed his temples. He stared at his laptop screen like it held the answers. It did not. I kept doing my job. I cleaned the conference rooms. I refilled the soap dispensers. I took out the recycling. But inside, I was ready. I had the hidden files. I had the proof. I had the master key. I just needed the right moment. I needed the house of cards to fall on its own. And I knew it would, because you cannot fake reality forever. The truth always finds a way to surface. I just had to be there when it did. The day of the audit finally arrived. The external auditors were seated around the large boardroom table. They wore serious suits and carried thick leather folders. Marcus stood at the front, presenting the flawless charts Julian had created. The numbers looked perfect. The growth projections were strong. The merger seemed certain. Julian sat beside Marcus, smiling confidently. He nodded at all the right moments. He answered questions with smooth, practiced replies. I was in the back of the room, refilling water pitchers. No one noticed me. I was just part of the furniture. The man in the gray jumpsuit. The invisible worker. I moved quietly along the wall. I kept my eyes down, but I watched everything. Then it happened. The main projection screen flickered once, then twice. The perfect chart froze mid-animation. A bright red error message flashed across the screen. Data integrity failure. The room went completely silent. You could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning. Marcus stopped speaking. He turned to look at the screen. His smile vanished. Julian jumped to his feet. He rushed his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He tried to reboot the presentation software, but the system did not respond. It locked down completely. This was a safety feature I had installed years ago. When a system detects massive, unauthorized changes to core data, it freezes to prevent further corruption. It requires a master key to unlock. Julian did not have that key. I did. The lead auditor, a woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "What is happening?" she asked. Her voice was calm but firm. Marcus looked angry. "Julian, fix this," he said through clenched teeth. Julian stammered. He blamed the IT department. He blamed the software vendor. He blamed a recent update. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His perfect suit now looked rumpled. The auditors asked to see the raw data logs. Julian could not provide them. They were locked behind the system freeze. The mood in the room shifted instantly. It moved from confusion to deep suspicion. Marcus realized something was terribly wrong. He looked at Julian with new eyes. "Order Julian to fix it immediately," the lead auditor said. Julian looked around the room, desperate. His eyes scanned the faces of the executives, the auditors, the staff. Then his eyes landed on me. For the first time in months, he really saw me. He remembered who I was. He remembered that I had built this system. He remembered that I knew every backdoor, every override, every safety protocol. His face went pale. The color drained right out of it. I stood quietly by the wall, holding the empty water pitcher. I did not move. I did not speak. I just waited. The house of cards was falling. The arrogance was gone. Only pure fear remained. Julian opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Marcus turned to look at me. He saw my gray jumpsuit. He saw my calm expression. He saw the only person in the room who might understand what was happening. The silence stretched. The red error message continued to flash on the screen. The auditors exchanged quiet glances. The merger was slipping away. The truth was about to surface. And I was the only one who held the key. Marcus turned to me. His voice was quiet, almost shaking. "Arthur," he said, "can you fix this?" The room went dead silent. Every single person looked at me. The auditors, the executives, the junior staff. They all saw the man in the gray jumpsuit for the first time. I slowly put down the empty water pitcher on the side table. I straightened my uniform. I walked to the front of the room. My steps were calm and steady on the thick carpet. I did not look at Julian. I kept my eyes on Marcus. "I can unlock the system," I said. My voice was clear and even. "But I cannot fix the data. The data is corrupted because it was manually altered. Someone forced incorrect values into the database." I paused. I let my words hang in the quiet room. "That is a violation of federal compliance laws. It is fraud." Julian jumped to his feet. His face was red now. "He is lying," he shouted. "He is sabotaging us because he was demoted. He is bitter." Marcus looked at Julian. Then he looked back at me. His expression was hard to read. "Arthur," he said slowly, "is this true?" I reached into my jumpsuit pocket. I pulled out my small tablet. I did not show them the stolen files yet. I did not show them the emails. I simply opened the system log. I projected it onto the main screen. The red error message faded. In its place, a clear list of entries appeared. Each entry showed a user ID, a timestamp, an action taken. The log clearly showed the user ID that made the dangerous changes. It was Julian's ID. The timestamps matched the late nights he had worked alone. The actions showed manual overrides of core safety protocols. The evidence was undeniable. It was written in the system's own language. I explained what happened in simple terms. I did not use technical jargon. I said, "The system has a safety feature. When someone tries to change important data without permission, it locks down. It protects the truth." I pointed to the screen. "These entries show who made the changes, when they made them, what they changed." I continued, "The only way to recover the real data is to restore from a backup." I kept a local backup, the one Julian ignored. I looked at Marcus. That backup contains the actual shipping logs, the real financial reports, the truth. Marcus was stunned. He stared at the screen. He stared at the log. He stared at Julian. He realized he had been lied to for months. He realized the merger was at serious risk. He realized the company could face legal trouble. His face changed. The anger was gone. Now there was disgust. Cold, clear disgust. "Get out," Marcus said to Julian. His voice was low but firm. Julian started to protest. "Marcus, please, let me explain," but two security guards are already at the door. They had been called quietly by an assistant. Julian looked at me one last time. There was no smirk, no confidence, no polish, only defeat. He was escorted out of the boardroom. The door closed softly behind him. The lead auditor spoke. "We will need to verify these findings," she said. "But this log is a strong start." Marcus nodded. He looked at me again. This time, he really saw me. Not the janitor. Not the ghost. He saw Arthur Vance, the man who built the system, the man who knew the truth, the man who had just saved the company from a much bigger fall. I simply nodded back. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just stood there. The room was still quiet, but the air had changed. The pressure was gone. The truth was out, and justice, for the first time in a long while, felt possible. Section 8, the new order. Target word count, 600 words. The aftermath moved quickly. The auditors spent the next 2 days verifying my findings. They checked the backup I provided. They confirmed the fraud. Julian was formally fired for cause. His professional reputation was destroyed. He now faces a legal investigation. The merger was paused, not canceled. The larger company wanted to see how Apex handled the crisis. Marcus came to my closet office the next morning. He looked different, humble, tired. He stood in the doorway of my small space. He apologized for the humiliation. He apologized for not seeing the truth sooner. He offered me my old job back. He offered a significant raise. He promised changes. I listened carefully. I appreciated the apology. It meant something, but I shook my head. "No," I said calmly. "I did not want a job." Marcus looked shocked. "Why not? You saved the company." I explained gently. "I have lost trust in the leadership. I have lost respect for the culture that allowed this to happen. I cannot build my future on that foundation." I handed him my resignation letter. I had written the night before. I was not leaving empty-handed. I had already spoken with a competitor, a smaller, more ethical firm in the same industry. They had offered me a partnership role, a chance to build something right, a chance to use my experience without the politics. I walked out of Apex Logistics for the last time that afternoon. I carried a small box with my personal items. I did not look back at the glass building. I did not feel bitter. I felt free. 6 months have passed now. I am thriving in my new role. We help businesses run smarter, not just look better on paper. I hear through the industry grapevine that Apex Logistics struggles. They hired expensive consultants to fix the problems I used to solve in an hour. Marcus is under pressure from the board. The merger is still uncertain. Julian is blacklisted. He cannot find a senior role anywhere. I sleep well at night. I wake up without dread. I have learned a powerful lesson. My value was never my title. It was never my office or my salary. My value was in my integrity, my skill, my institutional knowledge. They tried to bury me. They tried to make me small, but they forgot one important thing. They forgot I was a seed. And seeds, when planted in the right soil, always grow.